Hey everyone, welcome back to Noctirn. I hope you're doing well. And if this is your first time here, welcome. This channel is all about strange true cases, unsettling disappearances, and the kinds of stories that leave behind more questions than answers. For today's video, we're looking at 3 disappearances that have stayed with people for years. These are not cases where there's nothing to work with. In fact, each one has clues, witnesses, timelines, and moments that seem like they should have led somewhere. But they didn't. And that is what makes them so frustrating. At some point in each story, everything appears normal. Then, within a very short window, someone is gone, the trail breaks, and the people left behind are forced to make sense of details that never quite fit together. As always, we'll stick to what is known, separate fact from theory, and take a closer look at the details that continue to bother investigators and the public. So get comfortable, and let's begin. These are 3 true disappearances that still make no sense. Brian Shaffer was 27 years old when he disappeared from a bar in Columbus, Ohio. It was the night of March 31st, 2006. Brian had just finished a difficult stretch of exams at Ohio State, where he was in medical school. Spring break was beginning, and he went out with his friend Clint Florence to celebrate. Brian had also been through a difficult few weeks. His mother had recently died, and he was still grieving. But he had plans. He and his girlfriend Alexis were supposed to fly to Florida just a few days later. People close to him believed he may have been preparing to propose. Nothing about that night suggested he was about to vanish. Brian and Clint started at a bar called the Ugly Tuna Saloona near the Ohio State campus. They later visited other bars before meeting Clint's friend Meredith Reed, who drove them back to the Ugly Tuna for one final drink. Security cameras recorded the 3 of them arriving at around 1:15 in the morning. Just before closing time, at approximately 1:55, Brian was captured talking to 2 women outside the bar. Then he turned and moved back toward the entrance. That was the last confirmed sighting of him. At 2 in the morning, the bar closed. Clint and Meredith looked for Brian. They called his phone and waited outside with the other customers, but he never appeared. Eventually, they assumed he had left without telling them and gone home. But Brian had not returned to his apartment. His car was still parked outside. His belongings were there. Nothing suggested he had packed or planned to leave. When he stopped answering calls, concern grew quickly. Then he failed to show up for the flight he and Alexis had planned. Brian was reported missing. The security footage immediately became the center of the investigation. The cameras showed Brian arriving. They showed him near the entrance shortly before the bar closed. They showed the other customers leaving. But investigators could not find a clear image of Brian walking out through the main exit. That detail turned the case into one of the most discussed disappearances in the United States. How could someone enter a crowded bar, surrounded by people and security cameras, and simply fail to come back out? The answer may be less impossible than it first appears. The Ugly Tuna was located on the 2nd floor of a larger building. In addition to the main entrance, there was a service route leading toward an area under construction. It would have been difficult to navigate after drinking, but it was still a possible way out. The cameras were not perfect either. One moved across the area, and another was operated manually, meaning there were gaps where someone might not have been recorded. So the footage does not prove Brian never left the building. It proves only that no one could determine how he left. Police searched the bar, the construction area, nearby streets, dumpsters, sewers, riverbanks, and surrounding neighborhoods. They checked hospitals and shelters, reviewed footage from nearby businesses, and interviewed more than 100 people. Nothing led to Brian. Months later, his girlfriend called his phone, and instead of going directly to voicemail, it rang several times. The phone was reportedly associated with a tower northwest of Columbus, but the mobile provider said the activity could have been a technical error. It was another detail that sounded promising, then led nowhere. The case became even more painful in 2008, when Brian's father, Randy, died after being struck by a falling tree during a storm. Someone later left a message on his online obituary claiming to be Brian and saying he was in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Investigators traced it to a public computer in Ohio. It was a hoax. There have been many theories. Some believe Brian had an accident after leaving through the construction area. Others believe he encountered someone after leaving the bar. There are also theories that he deliberately disappeared, perhaps overwhelmed by grief, school, and the direction of his life. But no theory explains everything. There was no confirmed sighting after 1:55 that morning. No body was found. No account activity revealed a new life. And no one has explained where he went after the camera last recorded him. At around 7:30 on the evening of February 9th, 2004, a black Saturn sat damaged beside a snow-covered road in northern New Hampshire. A young woman had been seen standing near it. A local man stopped and offered help. She told him she had already called for assistance, but cell service in the area was poor. The man drove to his nearby home and contacted police anyway. By the time an officer reached the car, the woman was gone. Her name was Maura Murray, and no confirmed trace of her has ever been found. Maura was 21 years old and studying nursing at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. She had previously attended West Point. She was an experienced runner, and she knew the mountains of New Hampshire from family trips. On the morning she disappeared, she began preparing to leave campus. She emailed her professors and said there had been a death in her family, so she would be away for several days. There had been no death. She withdrew nearly all the money in her account, bought alcohol, packed belongings into her car, and drove north without telling anyone where she was going. Earlier that day, an ATM camera captured her alone. It became the last confirmed image of Maura before the crash. No one knows what she intended to do. She had searched for directions and made inquiries connected to places in Vermont and New Hampshire. Her actions suggested a short trip, but she left no explanation. Maura had also been under pressure. 2 nights earlier, she had crashed her father's car. Days before that, during a campus security shift, she became so distressed after a phone call that her supervisor walked her back to her dorm. Some believe she was escaping stress, even if only temporarily. But whatever journey Maura had planned ended on Route 112. The road curved through a quiet, wooded area near Haverhill. It was dark. Snow covered the ground. Maura's Saturn left the road and became stuck. A nearby resident reported the accident. Then a school bus driver stopped and spoke with Maura. He later said she appeared shaken, but able to stand and talk. He offered to call for help. She declined. That decision created the small window at the center of the entire case. The driver went home and called authorities. A police officer arrived soon afterward. The Saturn was still there. Maura was not. Inside the car were belongings that suggested she expected to continue her trip. Some of the alcohol she purchased was there, along with personal items. But there was no clear sign showing where she had gone. Search teams examined the road and surrounding wilderness. Nearby properties and possible routes were checked. Investigators considered the simplest explanation first. Maura left the car, entered the woods, and died from exposure. It is possible. The area is rugged, heavily wooded, and unforgiving in winter. but repeated searches have never found her remains or any confirmed item belonging to her. Another possibility is that she accepted a ride. If that happened, the driver would have arrived during the narrow period after the crash and before police reached the Saturn. That explains how Maura could have left the area without being seen walking for long. It also creates a darker question. Who stopped for her? Maura may have entered willingly, believing the person was offering warmth, a telephone, or a ride to safety. One ordinary decision could have carried her beyond the search area before anyone knew she was missing. There is also the theory that Maura disappeared deliberately. She left campus secretly. She created an excuse for her absence. She took cash and traveled north alone. But starting a new life requires planning, money, documents, and continued secrecy. Investigators have never announced a verified financial trail, identity, phone record, or sighting proving Maura began again somewhere else. And abandoning her life beside a damaged car, moments before police arrived, would have been a dangerously improvised plan. Over the years, tips have led to searches, and people with only a loose connection to the area have been accused publicly, often without evidence. Yet the official case remains open. In 2024, the FBI released an age-progressed image showing what Maura might look like at 41. It is a picture of a future no one can confirm she reached. That is why Maura Murray's disappearance remains so difficult to explain. We know she chose to leave campus. We know she drove north. We know she crashed on a lonely road and spoke to someone afterward. Then, within minutes, every confirmed part of her story stops. Maybe she entered the woods. Maybe she accepted the wrong ride. Maybe the truth is something no one has considered. But when police arrived that night, they found a car, a dark road, and the life Maura had left behind. The only thing missing was Maura.
At around 2 a.m, Brandon Swanson called his parents and told them not to worry. His car was stuck in the ditch on a rural Minnesota road, but he was not injured. He believed he was near the small town of Lind, only a short drive from home. His parents got into their truck and went to find him. They stayed on the phone while they searched. Then, Brandon left his car and began walking through the darkness. For nearly an hour, his parents listened as he described fences, running water, and lights ahead of him. Then, without warning, Brandon said 2 words. "Oh shit." After that, there was only silence. Brandon was 19 years old and studying wind energy technology at Minnesota West Community and Technical College. On May 13, 2008, he finished his last day of classes and spent the evening celebrating with friends in Canby, Minnesota. Before midnight, he began the drive home to Marshall. The route should have taken about 30 miles. Instead of staying on the main highway, Brandon ended up on dark gravel roads cutting through farmland. At some point, his Chevrolet Lumina slipped from the road and became lodged in a ditch. The accident was minor. Brandon told his parents he was fine. He simply needed help getting home. Brian and Annette Swanson drove toward Lind, where Brandon believed he was stranded. To help them find him, Brandon flashed his headlights. His parents flashed theirs. Neither side saw anything. They drove along the roads describing landmarks, but nothing matched. Eventually, Brandon decided to leave the car. He could see lights in the distance and believed they belonged to Lind.
He told his father he would walk toward them and meet him near a bar in town. So Brian continued driving while Brandon walked alone. The call lasted for roughly 47 minutes. Brandon sounded calm. As he crossed the countryside, he mentioned fences and running water. His father could hear his footsteps. Then, Brandon suddenly said, "Oh shit." The call ended. His parents called back repeatedly. Brandon never answered. By morning, the first major discovery only made the situation more confusing. Brandon had not been near Lind. Cell phone information placed him roughly 25 miles away, near Taunton and Porter. Searchers eventually found his car along a gravel road. The vehicle was not badly damaged. It had become suspended along the edge of the ditch, leaving its wheels unable to gain traction. The doors were open. The keys were gone. Brandon was nowhere nearby. The lights he had been walking toward may have come from Porter, or perhaps from a grain elevator visible across the flat landscape. In darkness, with few landmarks, Brandon may have mistaken distant lights for a town he believed he knew. Search dogs later followed a scent trail away from the car, across fields, and toward the Yellow Medicine River. One theory is that Brandon slipped into the water after his final words. It would explain the sudden exclamation and why he stopped responding. But extensive searches of the river and surrounding land found no confirmed trace of him. Accounts from the search also suggest the scent trail may have continued beyond the water. Other possibilities are harder to prove. Brandon could have fallen into an unmarked well, drainage area, or concealed section of difficult terrain. He could have become injured and hidden by crops or vegetation. He could have reached another road and encountered someone. Foul play has never been completely ruled out, but there is no public evidence showing another person was involved. Every explanation begins with something possible. Every explanation ends with the same problem. Brandon was never found. His disappearance also changed Minnesota law. Because Brandon was 19, authorities were initially hesitant to treat the report with urgency. His parents later helped push for legislation known as Brandon's Law. It requires law enforcement to accept missing person reports without delay and begin determining whether the person may be endangered. But it could not bring Brandon home. His case remains open. His car was found. Investigators reconstructed much of his route. His parents were speaking to him during his final known moments, and yet no one knows what he saw, what happened after those last two words, or how someone could disappear from miles of open farmland without leaving one confirmed trace. Brandon Swanson was not alone when he vanished. His parents were right there, on the phone. They heard him walking. They heard his voice. Then, they heard the moment something changed. And they have been waiting for the rest of the story ever since. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to Noctirn for more true cases, disappearances, and unsolved mysteries. You can also leave a like to help support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.